Kaiserpunk released on the 21st of March 2025. This is a game that's trying to do both city building. As you can see over here, we have different tiers of population, 4 tiers of population to be more precise, all with different needs, both in terms of resources, but also services, and you need to produce this through complex production chains. But it also combines this with the grand strategy aspect over here, right? You have the world map, different factions, and you're gonna have to fight. So for example, over here is one of my battalions that has a mix of soldiers, tanks, and artillery. We also have our air force over here, and lastly, as many battalions as you want, also of navy. So it is a pretty deep and complex game, and therefore today I'm going to share my top tips to thrive and survive into this game. Let's dive right in. First, in like most games, you can see pretty easily into the UI all of your resources, but it is slightly hidden. You actually have to click on this arrow over here, and by clicking on this arrow, you unlock at the top a couple of other spots of resource on top of the basic one. Here you can see your population, your morale, and the key resource, which are electricity, water, plywood, bricks, concrete, and glass. This is your working, your materials. But now at the top, you're gonna have spots for many others. If you've never done it, they'll probably all be empty, but you just left click and then you can choose whatever your resource you want to see there, and it is. Now you can see the resource, you can see if it's going up or down. You can even see your storage, right? Total 3,500 for the bread over here. I'm producing per minute 272, I'm using 228, and so my balance is in the positive, right? So really great in terms of UI, and as I said, you can choose whatever you want over here, and if there's something that you wanted to see before and you don't want to see it anymore, just right click on it and it's gone, and now you can put something else. Tip number 2, for your population, you have 4 tiers of population, but you have actually 8 buildings, because for each tier, you're gonna have a house and you're gonna have a high rise. So for example, the laborer house, the laborer high rise. We have over here the house and there the high rises. Now, as you can see, the high rises takes a bit more space. To be precise, takes 50% more space, right? If you look over here, this is 4, this one is 6. Right? So, or to say differently, if you have 3 houses, you're gonna be able to fit 2 of these. I can actually show you, we're gonna put 3 houses on this side, and we're gonna put 2 high rises. By the way, when I'm doing this, I'm showing you that you can press V to just move a building, and you can press C to copy it. So same space, right? But in terms of resources and all of this is not the same at all, because this is 30 people, right? So we have 90 over here. This one is already 80 just for one. So for 2, we have 160, way more, right? So high rises, I mean, it makes sense, right? They're apartments instead of houses. You can fit more people. But the other thing is you can also make more money, because look at this. This is 1.4 thousand of taxes, right? At the maximum. So times 3, right? This is going to be what? 4,200. Versus this one is again already almost 400 to 200, right? It's 3.8. So in total, we're talking about 7.6. So way more money that you're gonna make over here. Now, of course, if you're a beauty builder, you may say, no, the houses looks better. But if you're a min-maxer, I guarantee you this is better. This is better because, as I just showed you, you're gonna make more people and more money per squares. Tip number 3, the easiest way to lose the game is actually to get to 0 of stability on your capital. Especially because at the beginning of the game, you tend to have a couple of enemies around you. They may not be AIs, they may be just, pirates or things like this. Basically, your stability and also the stability of a country usually doesn't start at 100%. So let's assume you're at 50%. What happens is you do get a daily bonus of 0.5. So you're in positive. But as soon as there is one neighboring army, in this case over here, I guess this is this army over here, right? So there is one neighboring army, you lose 0.25. You have 2 neighboring armies, 0.5. 3 neighboring armies, 0.75. And at that point, right, you're already negative. So you're going to lose you're going to lose stability every single day. On top of this, if you have also hostile neighbor, you're going to lose even more. And station armies, your own army, if they are in poor state, you're also going to lose stability. So your stability can quickly get to 0%, and at that point, it's game over. You've lost. Now, the good news is pretty easy to avoid this. In your upgrades over here, you're always going to have at least 1 slot. Sometimes you have 2 or 3, like this one, but basically take 1 spot and make sure that you build this one over here, the propaganda bureau. It doesn't cost that much, 50 plywood, 50 bricks. Even if you're not making bricks, you can just get them by salvaging a couple of ruins on your map, because with this propaganda bureau, you're going to get another 0.5%. So basically you're at 1% positive if nothing happens. And so to get into the negative, you really need to have a lot of enemies around you. You need to have a lot of hostile neighbors. So it shouldn't happen, or at least it shouldn't happen right away. Like most strategy game, or actually also real life, you want to avoid running out of money. So how does that work? Well, if we see over here, we have our cash. I currently have tons of cash, right? 38.9 million in the bank. That's great. You can see your income, 483.9. My expenses, 456.2. So I'm making a bit of profit, 27,000. It's actually a lot, but in terms of percentage, it's maybe not that much, but in terms of absolute, it's pretty good. Now, how do you make that happen? How do you stay in positive? Well, first of all, you need to understand that your income, it's mostly taxes. You can also sell resources, but honestly, it's not going to give you that much. It's mostly your taxes of your people. So a bit like in Anno 1800, if you're out of money, just put a few more houses and hopefully you'll get into positive. But to be a bit more precise, your income, as I said, is linked to your taxes. Your taxes, as I showed you earlier, you can see on each houses how much taxes they're giving. For example, here, those specialists, they are giving me 4.4 out of the 4.7 maximum. So this is what's really important is you're going to want to have as many of your houses giving you the maximum. And for example, this one here, 3.8 out of 3.8. Great. We are the maximum. Let's check another one. These manufacturers find 5.8 out of 5.8. Perfect, the maximum. These technicians, 8.6 out of 8.6. Again, perfect, it's the maximum. So how do you get there? Basically, you need a high morale. And to be more precise, the great way to do this is you're going to need to give them their normal needs and their luxury needs. You can also boost a bit your morale by giving them public services over here, things like the clinics or the fire station, etc. But the sort of simple way to do it is just give them the resources they want. You do this, their morale is going to be high, and therefore they're going to give you tons of money. But this is just one side of the equation, right? The other side is obviously your expenses. Your expenses needs to be as low as possible. Of course, that means try to not overproduce too much, right? And this is where, again, this over here is really useful, because if I can see exactly how much I'm producing and how much I'm using and trying to get your balance not too high, right? Your balance should be in positive, but it doesn't have to be high, because if it's high, that means you have too many production buildings, and each of those production buildings, let's look, for example, over here, right? You have a farm. This is a farm, so it's not a high production cost or upkeep. It's only 77 of cash. But if I go more onto those advanced building there, 1.4, for example, right? And this one, 4.1 K just for one building, right? So if I have 2 or 3 of these when I only need 1, obviously my expenses are way too high. But I'm not finished. We're still in tip 4 around how to manage your money. The real way to get into a big positive like I am over here is with this third tab there, the upgrades. Pretty much every single building in the game is going to have 6 slots for upgrades. Depending on the buildings, you may not have access to the exact same things, but some of them, like these two, are always there. These 2 green ones are really the critical one. The first one is going to increase your production per cycle by 20%. And a really important thing there, by the way, is that it increases your output, like in this case, for example, electrical parts by 20%, but it doesn't change your inputs in terms of the electricity, the cash, but more importantly also the raw materials. In this case, the plastic and copper, you're still gonna need 5, without the upgrades or with the upgrades. Actually, let's do it together. This is 5 for 18, right? I'm gonna build this one. Now 20%, it's still 5, but now it's 22, right? And the cool thing is I can usually put 3. There's a couple of buildings where you can only put 1, but on those ones, and I can show you, it's usually the military ones. So where are my military buildings? They are typically a bit more over here. We have this, you can only put 1, but it's a plus 100%. That definitely is worth it. Okay, so we've talked about, the production per cycle plus 20%, but actually the one I did want to show you too is more the other green one, which is reduced cash cost by 12%. It's a bit less, right? 12%, but you can have, again, 3 of them, right? So what is it? 36% in total. So that's pretty good, right? To reduce this one as much as possible. But combining with this one makes it even powerful because let's assume you need 30 electrical parts, right? If you improve it fully like this, it's going to cost you 4.1 to make 30. But now let's assume it's not improved at all. So instead of having 1, you're going to need 2, right? Because you're going to need 1 to make 18, and then you don't have a choice. You need a second one to also make 18. So you're going to have 2 of these, and each of them is 6.5 thousand. So now you're talking about 13,000 of upkeep versus this one is only 4,000. So you see the huge difference it makes to actually combine those 2 things together to produce what you need while costing very little money. Tip number 5, you do need to make sure that you manage your unemployment. I know I said that, if you're low on money, you probably just put more people, more houses, and it's true in general. But if you have a lot of unemployment, it's going to have an impact on your morale. So actually, let's go into the detailed population tab over here. where we can see all of the actual, numbers for my happiness. We have for the laborers, needs, I'm giving everything, 100%, super happy. Same for luxury, super happy. Education, super happy. Safety, super happy. Health, super happy. But so why is my morale only 60%? It should be 100%, right? No, it's not, because there's two problems. The first one is I'm at war. Long-lasting war is going to create war weariness. Even if you don't lose battle, the more years pass in a war, the more this number is going to increase up to reaching 100%. And at that point, that's going to obviously decrease your morale by a lot. Additionally, if you have too many people unemployed, this is also going to reduce your morale. So we can see, for example, the manufacturers, they're pretty similar, where they have 100% pretty much everywhere too, but their unemployment is even higher at 14%, and therefore their overall morale is only at 58 instead of 60. So do keep in mind that you shouldn't have too much unemployment. It's as a percentage of your total population of that type. And therefore, sometimes you may actually want to have some buildings that use a lot of your population, even if you don't need them. And in this case, to go back to tip number 4, try to just select buildings that have a lot of people, but not so much of expense, right, of upkeep. And just to finish on this tip 5 of making sure that you don't have too much unemployment, which will reduce your morale, it's not because morale will mean higher taxes. It's also because if you have low morale, right, you're going to have low immigration, and also people may just riot, which will burn your city, right, and they leave. So again, try to avoid having low morale, and in particular, try to avoid having too much unemployment, because that's going to reduce your morale. Tip number 6, 4 tiers of population, as I mentioned. Let's talk about them in a bit more detail. We have the laborers that are very important, for your farms and things like this. You have your manufacturers, really useful for a lot of the industrial production. You have your technicians, really important for advanced productions and also a lot of the advanced military. And then you have your specialists, and to be honest, you're not going to have that many. You can see right now, this is a pretty endgame save, and I only have 260 of them. I could have more of them, but basically my point is that these ones, you're not going to need as many as the other ones. Like, I have right now almost 6,000 laborers for those 260 specialists. Each tier of population will have different needs. You have, for example, for the laborers, they just want vegetables and bread in terms of basic needs, while then you move to manufacturers, they want also fish, meat, and water. Then your specialists or technicians, they add the fish soup and the juice and electricity. And last but not least, your specialists, they want all of this plus sushi and pie. And that's the same, for your luxury goods, where you keep adding and adding. And you have also the public services. Now, as I just mentioned, for the normal basic needs and the luxury needs, it's always in addition. Now, for your laborer, you need, for example, clothes and newspaper in terms of luxury. This is also needed for your specialists. They also need those clothes and those newspaper, but on top of this, they need many other things. So you know that you always need more of the basic production and not just forget about the basic production. For the services, it's pretty similar too, where they're going to add more and more services that they want, but there is one difference, this additional bonus, where each of the tier will want something different. They want the jazz club over here. These guys, they want, the TV. This one, they want the radio station. And last but not least, here they want the record label. So it is fine, for example, to have a couple of service buildings like I have over here. The police station, the fire station, the elementary school, those type of things in the middle. But you're also going to need a couple of buildings specialized for each neighborhood, right? Tiers of population. One big warning I do want to give you is that you need to be careful. It is not because you have unlocked a new tier of population in terms of the house that you have unlocked their productions. It is actually quite likely that you have unlocked the population, let's say the manufacturer, house, and you may not have unlocked yet the production for these, for example, the production for radios. And therefore, it's going to be hard for you to have a high morale. They may riot, they may not give you a lot of taxes. So you may want to check. How do you check? You may be wondering. This is linked to the development tree. So let's actually talk about the development tree next. Tip number 7. Development tree is pretty big. You have actually 2, 4, 6, 8 different trees, right? Each of them is a different tree, where you start at level 0 and you need to go all the way to level 15. And I guarantee you level 15 is a lot, right? It's not going to be in 5 minutes that you get there. And at each level, you're going to unlock a couple of things. So if we look, for example, at the agriculture, at level 0, we only have access to the vegetable farm, the grain field, and that's it, nothing else. With level 1, we unlock the cotton field. We also unlock a couple of first upgrades, the upgrades that I showed you before, to, for example, increase your production per cycle or decrease your running cost. You don't actually have them when you start, or you don't usually also have them as soon as you unlock the building. For example, let's take this vineyard over here that you unlock at level 9. So when you unlock the vineyard at level 9, you don't unlock, their upgrade. You only get the vineyard's upgrade. Let's see, pretty far. Where are they? Here it is. The first one are over here at level 13. So 4 levels later. And it's not even all of them. There are also, over here, some others. And the last one is at level 15. So you do need to keep that in mind. Talking about this development tree, it's a bit different than most games, right? Because you're not going to have a choice. It's not like you can say, oh, I want to spend a bit of resource and unlock level 3 over here, or even the next level. This is basically based on, it's a production if you wish. You start with 0 of, let's say, tech point for agriculture. And then as soon as you start building agriculture buildings, you're going to have this number here in green that will go from 0 to, let's say, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, right? And that's going to start increasing the blue number here, which is your stock of tech points for agriculture. This will start increasing by this number, plus for every turn type of thing. And then when you reach 10, okay, you've unlocked the first level. When you reach 30, you've unlocked the second level. 540, the third, etc., etc. So as I said, it is when you build, sorry, wrong one. It is when you build buildings. So let's look, for example, here at the grain field. The grain field will give me 4.5 points for agriculture. If I look over here at the brewery, it is going to give me 3 points of the morale text tree. So each of the buildings will give you points, but if you don't build buildings of a certain tier, you're not gonna start unlocking new things either. If you don't know what buildings will give you what points, it's actually pretty easy. Instead of clicking on the basic there, click on development, and you're gonna see those 8 tech trees we just looked at together. And so here, this is all of the buildings that will give me points for the first one. All of the buildings that will give me points for the second, the agriculture. Here, all of the buildings that will give me morale points. So this is quite important to make sure that, again, you start unlocking, pretty early all of these. I do suggest, you don't wait too long to build a couple of buildings for all 8 so that they start moving forward. In particular, in utilities over here, I do suggest that you create quite a few of them early so that you can get to level 8, which is 10,000 points, and unlock the water purification plant. It is a building that requires technicians, that requires concrete, etc. So it's a pretty advanced one. But if you don't reach it early, or if you don't reach it, at a certain point in time, let's say, you may be soft locked because you're going to be out of water on the map. So that is a quite important one to get to. Tip number 8, over here, you have quite a few statistic menu. This is a bit like your control Q, R, S, T, in Anno 1800. I showed you quickly the population one, but you also have the building overview, you have the stock overview, you have your money. Diplomacy is a bit different, but if you look at the money, for example, right, you can see a bit more details on how much money we're making, trade deals, etc. Right? We can also see, as I said before, the stock one, which is really great. We can see all of the resources in the game. I think it's 100 different resources. You can filter, for example, by the one that are used, the one that you produce. Right? You can check it all. And for each of them, you can see exactly, okay, my stock, my production, importation, use, exported, therefore the balance, etc. And last but not least, with N over here, right, you have the building menu where you have housing, factory, military base, distribution, public, and transport. And you see all of them, and you see all of the details, right? For the houses, for example, their morale and things like this. For the factories, you can see exactly what they're producing. Is it consuming water, electricity, etc. I do hope that soon they will bring quality of life improvement, which is that when you click there on the building, it brings you to the building on the map. They have said they're working on it, but I don't know when it's coming. Okay, let's take a breather. We've covered 8 tips. There's a few more and they are important. But if you're still here, please take a second to smash like button. These videos do take a lot of efforts for me to make, and I would love to know if they're useful for you with this like or dislike button if you really don't like them. Don't worry, I'll wait. Have you done it yet? Not yet? Why? Come on, do it. Okay, let's move on. When you start a new game, there are many different things that you can choose, and I'm not going into details over here, but what I did want to show you is you can also choose over here 2 quite important things. One is your ore deposit richness. In the current version of the game that I'm playing, the reality is with 100% ore richness, I feel like most players are going to struggle. So you may want to put it higher, or you may also want to put it infinite. What does that mean? Currently in, again, the version I'm playing, for a while, when you start a mine or when you start, a water deposit, there is a lot of water there and you start consuming it. And very soon after, let's say a couple of years after, this water is gone or this coal is gone. And you just have a bit of production that remains, but very little. And that's not enough to keep, big base like the one I showed you before to go. So that is why with this infinite, you will keep a fairly high production, which I feel, again, may be needed for most players out there. The second point I wanted to mention is, in particular, if you started playing the game right away at launch, the AI was actually pretty strong. It was pretty strong both in terms of expansion and in terms of, quickly they go through the tech tree, let's say. So again, if you don't have tons of experience with city builders and strategy games, you may want to reduce the aggressiveness over here, right, to, for example, passive, and the difficulty to easy for those AIs. Creating a mighty army on the world map does take a few steps. So let me recap them to make sure we're all on the same page. Step number 1, you're gonna need to make weapons. At the beginning of the game, that's gonna be things like handguns, then you're gonna go into rifles and more advanced, or it can also be, again, at the beginning of the game, you're gonna want to make, those small field guns or infantry tanks, then later on powder gun or medium tank. So you make the actual weapon or vehicles. Step number 2, you're gonna need supply. So supply are gonna be things like these ones over here, the bombs, or you're gonna have, the artillery shells, or just the basic ammunition. Supply is also your food ration or your army ration, right? You need all of the things for your weapons, be it a tank or be it just a rifle, to be able to shoot. Step number 3, you're going to create squad in a garrison. So you have 3 types of garrison, and again, an easy way is to go into the military tab over here, and you're gonna see, we have the naval base, we have the air base, and you have the basic military base. So again, you have 3 types: your land, your navy, and your air. And then in those garrisons, so this one is a battalion for the land, and if you go over here, you're gonna see this one is a garrison for the navy, and last but not least, here is a garrison for the air force. You're gonna always see 8 slots. You can have 8 squad in a battalion. So step 3, you create some squads. You click on the plus button there and you choose a certain type of army, choose the one you actually have the resources for. You're always gonna need 2 resources. One is gonna be the recruits. The good thing is, as long as you have population, you're gonna have recruits. You don't really have to worry about this one. And then going back to step 1, you're gonna need a weapon or a vehicle. Right, if I want to do a squad of corvettes, I'm gonna need 3 corvettes. If I want to do a squad, of heavy bomber, I'm gonna need 12 heavy bomber. And last but not least, if I do one of these over here of land base, right, I'm gonna need for a heavy tank squad, I'm gonna need 80 heavy tanks. So this is, you click on it and it's gonna say, okay, it starts. So a couple of recruits are gonna come slowly but surely, and you need to be close to a depot for the depot to deliver, the heavy tanks. It seems like I probably don't have a lot of heavy tanks in storage, so maybe here, there it is, yeah, starting to deliver 20. I think 20 is actually the max for one truck. So then another truck will come with 20 more, and then it will get to 100%, and I'll have a unit. Once that is done, you move to step 4. You're going to see the troop over here. It's been added, right? It's no longer a plus, you see something, but you see it kind of grayed out because it hasn't been deployed, right? Regardless of if you've deployed some troops before or not from this battalion, whatever you build new is not deployed. So you need to click here to deploy it on the map. If the battalion is already deployed, that's easy. You just click there, and in a couple of days, depends how far the battalion actually is right now from your base, from your capital. It's gonna take more time, of course, it's far. But as soon as the time is finished, you find again this battalion on the map, right? So this battalion right now is over here, for example, for me. You find it on the map, and it's fine, right? The troop is there. And if it's a new battalion you've never deployed before, there's just going to be one extra step, which is to choose where you want to place sort of the base of operation of those troops, right? Where to deploy them. Obviously, it needs to be one of your territory, but it can be pretty much anywhere. So take advantage of this also to potentially put a troop very far right away, even if, of course, it's going to take more time to deploy, right? 12 days instead of 2, like we saw just before. Step 5, just fight, right? You take your army, you click on one of those red buttons, it's gonna go to war. By the way, if you are not at war with somebody, it will tell you, it will say, are you sure you want to go at war with this faction? So in this case here, I'm just attacking pirates, so that's fine, right? Sending my planes, bombers, and it is. I've done quite a lot of damage, actually. They're dead in one go, so we are victorious. That is great. You may not win in one go, so you may have to attack again after the cooldown, and then basically you repeat, which means you need to have enough supply, right? You need to make sure, for example, you may want to build some of these supply outposts. This is one of the upgrade. I talked about the propaganda office, but you also have over here the outpost. And when you click on the actual outpost, you'll be able to send some stocks of the different resources to this outpost, and then the outpost will make sure to supply, to the troops that are close by. So this troop, instead of needing supply from Central Europe, can get its supply from Iceland. So it's a lot easier for them. Next tip is a really important one. In this game, like also a bit in Anno 1800, logistics are really key. I just talked about the supply post, but way more importantly is in your city building, the supply is very important. You have over here the depot. Now the depot will be transporting resources from everything that is in range. It will be able to do it well for all of the green ones. It will be able to do it okay-ish for the yellow one. It won't be able to do it for the red one. So for example, this building over here, it's red for this depot there, it's too far. But the good thing is it's green for this depot there, right? So you have those depots. Those depots have a number of trucks, which by the way, you can add one. So it starts with 6. And if you use this one, you can add some more. But this is very limited, you can't transport that much with one, and they're not that fast. You can improve the speed slightly. I think it's like 20% more or something like this with the top one. But what you want to do is actually, instead of all of this, you want to actually kind of bypass completely those trucks. How do you bypass those trucks? Well, if you put productions that are, linked to each other, next to each other, you will be able to bypass. What does that mean? Well, you can see there is a small green circle around this farm here, right? All of the production buildings that are in this circle will be able to get the resource, in this case the grain, without a truck. So in this case over here, I have, for example, flour mills, right? 1, 2, and I have a third over here. They are in the range of the farm. So what's happening is instead of using trucks, you can see here this line that shows them they're connected. So we're getting, the wheat directly without a truck. And then you can go further because this flour is going to be used into these bakeries over there, right? Those bakeries, again, they're in range of this one. Or these bakeries over here, they're in range of both of these. So they're getting, the flour directly into this building. And then there is only the last one. Now, the last one, when the bread is done, yes, you need a truck to take the bread. This is this truck that you can see over here, for example, right? It just took the bread and it's going to bring it back to the depot. And in the depot, that's it, right? It's done. So being able, to be smart, to create layouts like this one, like basically, if I press my C button, this layout over here, this is taking advantage of one grain field, production 15, to do as much bread as possible with very few trucks needed at all. And again, the other thing over here is it's really using the right ratios. Similarly, you can see this is one layout too. We have one grain field that's again making basically enough for 3 of those breweries. And we have the same over here. Then here, this is one content farm that's enough to support all of these clothes. So you can create very efficient layout, and this will be both kind of efficient in terms of as little as possible of those depots, but also as little space as possible. Next tip, as I mentioned before, you do want to boost your production as much as possible, with one exception. If you're not playing on the infinite resource, each of your mines and things like water, deposits, etc., they are limited. For example, this zinc mine over here has only 7.8 thousand of zinc, and while you have zinc over there, this is going to produce 6 per minute. But when this goes to 0, this is going to start producing way less, maybe like 2 or 3. So at that point, you're going to be in trouble. And therefore, you definitely do not want to put this production per cycle increase right now, because what it means is that you're going to get this empty quicker, right? So you don't want that. On the other hand, once it's empty, right, and this production really drops dramatically, then you want to put them. So keep that in mind, right? You can put the production boost after they're depleted, but not before, because you'll be in trouble. Next one, let's talk about the wiki, in particular production wiki, which you can find over here. By clicking on this button, then you can click on any single resource in the game. Let's say the aluminium over here, for example. It's going to show you exactly how to make aluminium. In this case, it's easy. You just have an aluminium mine. By the way, when you do this, it will show you also where the aluminium deposits are. So that is really powerful. So that was a very simple one. But now let's assume we take something slightly more advanced, like this jewelry. When you click on the jewelry, you will see that, okay, you need a jeweler. That's easy. You can place the building. But then what you can also do is see, okay, for the jeweler, we're going to need gold and silver. For the gold, okay, I need this, a gold mine. I see where the gold mine is, I go there, right? Then you can press Z to go back to this and see, okay, I also need silver. So let me place a smelter, right, for the silver. But then how are we going to actually make the silver? Well, we're going to need the galena, right? So then you press this one and you get the galena mine. And by the way, I selected jewelry to show you because this is the only production I don't have in the game. Everything else I've done before. And then last but not least, let's talk about trading, because trading is quite important. It can save you, it can help you giving money, but also resources, especially when, for example, your coal mine or your zinc mine is empty and you're not getting any enough zinc to manage your production. You're going to want to trade. You have 3 buildings to start trading with the smugglers: the land one, the navy one, and the air one: the airport, the trade port, and the market. I've built all 3. Let me show you quickly. They're basically all the same, but my understanding is that you start getting basically more and more resources if you start building all 3. We have over here, the cost as always, and you have some upgrades like reducing the cost of those buildings and a few others. But the important point is the one in the middle there, where you're going to have 6 slots for the land one, but also for the navy one. It's 6 slots, and you can put different things, but you have 6. You have, you can choose which resource to put. You click on it, then you select one resource. Then you have this number over here, which is what I'll call your floor. This is the number of resources you want to get to. Let's put 2000, for example. What does that mean? Well, it means that if I have less than 2000, I'm going to buy until I get to 2000. And if I have more than 2000, I'm going to sell until I get to 2000. But the cool thing is you can actually decide if you want to only buy or only sell. If I click over here, it's going to say, it prevents from buying, right? So we're only going to sell. And vice versa, if I click on this one, we're going to buy, but we're never going to sell. So this is how you can really manage your trading. Now, I do want to mention that your smugglers, those traders that are going to come over here, they are very limited in 2 ways. The first one is that they don't always come with all resources. Sometimes they may come with plywood, sometimes they may not come with plywood. So you have to be careful with this. It's not because you just put 2000 and you have the money that they're going to give you 2000 every month. They may not have any plywood for you. And the second sort of related is, even if they have plywood, they typically have a very limited amount of plywood or money that they bring. So, if again you say I want 2000 plywood, that doesn't mean they're going to give you 2000 plywood right away. They may only give you 50. And even when you sell, you may have 4000 of plywood and say I want to sell until I get to 2000. But if they came with only 1000 in the bank, they're not going to buy that much. So these traders, I feel like they're very good at the beginning of the game. They tend to be pretty poor at the end of the game, where at the end of the game, you need to start moving more into trading with the AIs. So don't kill them all right away. But if you click on any AI, you'll see over here trade deals, right? You can negotiate and start negotiating deals of resource, where you need to give them some resources and they will give you some other in exchange. To be honest, I feel like we should definitely have also the option to give them money, but this is not available, at least in the current version of the game right now. So it is, listeners. I know it wasn't the shortest video, but this is because this game is pretty deep. There is a lot here. So these are my top tips for you to thrive and survive in Kaiserpunk. Which one do you feel I missed? Share in the comments, please, also which one you actually liked. And I do have a full let's play on this game that you can see on the screen right now. And if you want me to play this game more, don't hesitate to also tell me. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.